Hello YouTube! Do you like the bevel shader node inside of Blender? Well, I do, and I think it is a very good tool to save yourself some time when you're dealing with hard surface models and you wanna just speed up your workflow. But what is the problem with this shader node? It is not supporting bevel between multiple objects. What I mean is, when you have different objects that are not joined into one, it is not going to work. As you can see, when I join these two geometries, they are now working. And it is a pretty annoying limitation that can convolute this supposedly faster approach to having these bevels effect. Now, what is my solution? It is a very simple solution actually that involves simple geometry node 3. As you can see here, I have a collection called joint 1. It contains a few objects here, and it is going to be used as a joint model that is going to create this effect between different objects and keep things non-destructive and flexible. Let's go ahead and create a new empty object. I'm going to duplicate this cube and delete the faces inside of it. I'm going to drag it outside of this collection and I'm going to call it joint geo01 or something like this. And let's go ahead and create a geometry nodes modifier and create a geometry nodes 3 called joint 01. So now we have this empty object. Let's pull it a bit to the side. Let's make sure that rotation and scale is reset and open the geometry tree. With this object selected, and make sure we have this joint 01 geometry tree here selected, let's go ahead and delete this group input, we don't need it, and search for collection info. This collection info, we're going to input our joint 1 collection. This is going to read our collection. Now, how do we combine this into one simple geometry? Let's go ahead and search for realize instances, and these instances we're going to plug into geometry. This is very simple, as we have now a geometry output that we're going to put in our group output, and voila, we have our models joined into one single mesh that is having this effect, and it is not messing up any topology or any tricks that we have put in our collection. What do I mean that? That if, for example, I add a boolean here, let's join this so that it's just one single boolean, and let's go ahead and create a boolean. It is not messing up anything that we have already created in our collection. I believe this is a very nice, very sweet solution for this problem that is even better than if we had a global option here on the bevel shader node that works between multiple objects. So if we go ahead and create additional stuff here, it is all going to be represented in our final duplicated model. We can even go ahead and we can add other modifiers here. For example, we can add a mirror modifier here, and it is going to work for our collection that is not mirrored here. And we can just simply think about how to create better details here and not worry about anything. This is the great stuff about this approach. You are not thinking about topology, you're not thinking about joining objects. I mean, if you want to join the objects, it is only so you can simplify, for example, your pivots, I don't know, organize yourself a little bit better, but not think in terms of how am I going to find a solution for a topology or for a case that involves booleans and so on. Another example would be if we take this part here and we want this part to be inside a hole in our main big. Let's go ahead and create a boolean, and we want this object right here to have bevel with these big objects. And if we go ahead and join this, our geometry is gonna get eaten by the boolean. So this approach is actually pretty much impossible if we want to achieve something like this. But if we go ahead and take a look in our solution here with joint GU1, it is working perfectly. It is taking care of our problems like nothing. If any part of our object we don't want to be blended with something beneath it, we have to take this out of our joint collection, and it is not going to be affected here. My recommendation with these kinds of situations is to create another joint to collection. Joint 02. Let's go ahead and put our wing inside of that collection, and let's create another object right here. Let's apply the material, and we are now having these two objects in our joint 2 collection. Let's repeat the steps for the joint GU object that is going to be our second object. Let's call it joint GU2, and let's go ahead, select our geometry nodes modifier and duplicate our joint GU geometry tree. Let's go into geometry nodes, and we have our geometry tree. And as you remember, we have to select our second collection. Now we have two separate objects that are not blending with each other, and you can work with two joint GU objects for your whole mesh pretty much no matter how much complex it gets. Unless you don't want to have additional modifiers, mirror modifiers, then you maybe have to create a third object or a fourth if you know some other specific situation you run into. I think this method is one of the best methods on how to use this bevel shader effect to the maximum. And I've used this method for my last piece in my portfolio. This mech is using these bevels very heavily. As you can see, on every little detail, every little part, there is some kind of bevel. And these are just objects combined into one single mesh at the end with this node 3. It is very sloppy, there's no topology, it combines curves, it combines subdivided and non-subdivided meshes, it contains booleans, and so on and so forth. And for example here, as you can see, there is small bevels between all kinds of different meshes here that are not joined and they don't care about each other. What I care about is having the final object here that is going to be combined, and it simplifies my life and my process. What I won't recommend about this process is if you have something very complex in this kind of scale, this kind of complexity, I do not recommend having these geometry nodes turned on. What I mean is, best way is just click this button, fake user, so that it saves your joint 01 geometry tree and not delete it if your Blender crash, and click this X button, just remove it, and work on your model as much as you want, make it as complex as you want, and whenever you want to check out render or you think you're finished, just add your joint 1 geometry tree. It is going to lighten your performance because this operation might get pretty heavy if you're using hundreds of objects in one collection, and Blender has to think how to update this real time, because as you can see, it updates real time. So that would be my suggestion. That was the video for the simple way of how to use this approach. The second video that I'm going to create is going to be how to combine this ZenBBQ addon right here with my joint geometry approach. This addon is giving you fine control over specific objects or specific parts of your mesh. So if you wanna have different parts of your model to be beveled with thicker bevels or smaller bevels for a higher quality, higher level, for example, that I've used here, go ahead and check out my second video that I'm going to upload. I'm going to link it somewhere. And I hope this simple one or the more advanced one elevates your hard surface skills or workflow and makes your art better. For now, bye and see you in the next video.